G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined by Algared today and Paul, and we're recording this a day early before the Crusader Expo, but we're going to release this the day of the Crusader sale, so that'll help you guys that are interested in buying the Mercury Star Runner. And that is the ship that we're going to be talking about today. It is finally in game. It has been a long wait. I think it's 2.5 years, or about 2 years for most people that have brought it. It's probably the third most popular ship in the entire game, and that'll be behind the Carrack and the Banner Merchantman. It's long been awaited. I probably
It
would have
is
liked to get
first we see from Crusader,
yes.
so it gives us that Crusader design language as well. So
I was just going to say I would have liked to have had C here because he's a big fan of Crusader, but he wasn't available for this one. So
yeah,
maybe we'll get his thoughts in the comments below. So we've basically gone through and we've done a big pros list and a big cons list, and then we're gonna kind of go through those and we'll go backwards and forwards. Do you guys want to start with pros or cons? Paul, what's your feeling? Pros or cons?
bad
Let's
news
start
first.
with cons. Let's do bad news first, then go into the pros,
Yeah.
because and then people will think we're beating up on them.
All right. So I started the con list, so I'm going to read my top one, and I've said this to Algared, and once Algared was sorry, he can't unsee it either. So for me, I really hate the elevator, and the whole fact that the elevator exists is because the entire ship is up on stilts that takes up a third of the ship for this tunnel system below. That I think kind of creates this gimmicky gameplay that I don't think is going to work the way that people think it's going to work. And a lot of people have kind of brought this ship because of smuggling. And I'm just going to say, if you want a smuggling ship, you really should look at the Retaliator. And if you want to know why, you can ask me later, right? Because that's not what this is about. It's not about the Retaliator. It's about this ship. But yeah, long story short.
And I will say, as the resident expert in smuggling in this crew, I would agree.
Yeah.
Not
And
necessarily for today, but for the future.
Yeah.
And as Sear would say, this is not a smuggling ship. This is a data runner.
Yep.
You know,
As its
yes,
primary-
you can do little hidey hole, but there you go.
Yeah, it's its primary function is data running.
Primary function is data running. Yes, you can smuggle a little bit, but it is not a smuggling ship. And if you're buying it for smuggling, you're doing yourself a disservice, I think. But yeah, as Execute said about the elevators, I said to him just before the show, you ruined this ship for me, because now that I see it, I can't unsee it.
Yeah, and it literally that vent area takes up almost a third of the ship, and like when you kind of look at it, you go like, wow, how much better could have that been utilized? And I even think, like, rather than having it like tunnels, you know, that little area off to the side where you can store the cargo, I would have much rather than another spot like that. And coming into some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, you know, the other side where the components are, I would have had that
Yep.
as a cargo one as well. But I digress. We'll talk about that more in a minute. The last bad one for me is that the lack of windows. They also removed the skylight that was above the chess table. So you can't kind of sit there and look at space anymore. And I guess that kind of does go through the no frills or budget branding of this ship. But it's just a missed opportunity for me. Like, it's always nice to be able to look out the windows and watch the warp and the stars go by, and you can't really do that in the ship. That said, I've just realized another positive, so I'm going to slip this in here that I forgot. It does have a really incredibly nice, clear and open cockpit. That's a positive that we didn't put on the list. Sorry, Algared.
But in terms of just agreeing in terms of the negatives, they've often said, you know, being able to see outside actually helped with physical well-being, and also having plants and stuff help with physical well-being. And
that's a good
you
point.
can have plants in, but not having windows,
it is
does.
It is a little Spartan on the inside. Now that you mention it, it is very that white hospital aesthetic chic, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, but I actually didn't feel that. I didn't feel it was as sterile as you know my arguments against the Origin 600i, and this doesn't feel that Spartan, or it felt nice and cozy, and I really like that. But no windows really does I think muck it up.
So Paul, what are your thoughts on what the community kind of talked about with the whole no life pod situation? What's your take on that?
I think it's definitely. I mean, I understand why there's no life pods, because if it's a no frills kind of the way it's designed ship, but the one way in, one way out is a problem.
It does make it more. It does make it more defendable, But if you're trying to get out when there's a fire, it's terrible. So yeah,
Well, if you're being boarded, it's already too late.
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
that's one of the problems with the Mercury is that because, and this is the problem about the Mercury as a dedicated smuggling ship, is that it is everyone knows where the hidey holes are. Everyone knows what chess piece you use to activate the hidey holes.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, so everyone knows where those things are. They're just going to go there the first thing they do. So by the time you get it boarded, you're
Well,
done.
let me explain
The
that.
only reason why you do it. Go ahead.
I actually think that gameplay is actually more like a loop-de-loop. And so what it is every room is one entrance and one exit. So if they go through the vents to look for you, you're meant to go through the hallways to another room, carrying the little crate.
Yeah.
If they go through the hallways,
I
you're meant
get
to go somewhere else. So it's like
So they've even said that the idea is as they're searching for
Algared,
you.
just let me finish. You would be talking to the person that's carrying the crate and letting them somehow know to go another way or go to another room. So you would be instructing them not to be where they're about to search and which way to go. You need to take the vents and get out of that room, or vice versa.
CIG even said that when they were talking how the vents would work. The idea of all these vents is that you're hiding there as they're searching for you. They go in this area, you tell them, oh, yep, and they run off to another area and use the windy corridors to get to a different room and get out. So once they check the room, you go into that room and hide.
I also don't think that's the way that gameplay is going to play out. That's one of the problems, I think.
It feels gimmicky. Like it's like a really weird game of hide and seek, and I don't see how there's a fun element in there. Like like they're gonna catch you eventually. If they know you're there and they just keep looking for ages, like what is it? They're gonna search. It'll work with NPCs, but it's not gonna work with humans.
And when CIG talked about it, they
shoot you and
talked
take your
about it as
stuff,
being when
you know?
they talked about it as being the type of thing when you're being scanned, the shielding area will protect you from, say, an electronic scan. But if they board you and we're doing a manual scan and they gave the idea that NPCs may do that, then those little hidey holes and tunnels would be the way you'd avoid that.
Well, if NPCs can't get into the vents, like they can't crouch, then maybe it'll work quite well. But I also would have liked to seen a spot down there to actually put some cargo. I don't know. I think it's really unutilized, the whole ship, and again, once you see how the whole ship is raised up just to accommodate these vents, it's really weird. Like it feels like the whole ship is on stilts, and
But the value of those vents, and I did see Sears' first view of the Star Runner. He made the point. This would be an avionics system to help the servers cool, so the heat from the servers goes down there. So it's actually a key part of a ship or a key part of the data runner. Something that the Herald doesn't have.
Yeah. Speaking of Sear, then we'll move on to the components area that Sear was not a big fan of, and I think the point that he pointed out, and I think we all kind of agree on this, is it's just like walk in the main door and turn left, and you've got access to every single component in the ship.
Yeah. How to shut down the ship,
which doesn't make it very. It doesn't make it defendable. It makes it easy access.
It's 2 doors to breach. That's all it is. It's 2 doors. I mean, the thing about any defenses is that a persistent attacker will always overcome any defenses. The key about defending is to slow down the attacker long enough so that you can get someone to back you up, or that you can find a way around those attackers, or find a way to slow them down so that attrition eventually grinds them down.
This ship has
the problem with it's basically like, oh, you're here for my ship. Here, let me give you my ship. Like it's designed it's designed more as a it's entirely designed off its cool factor is what it is.
This ship has a new feature as well that has been implemented. You can actually shoot the components and they will destroy and disable. It's the first ship that has that. So ironically, if say there was a fight breaking out, you would break in, turn in, shoot the power, all the lights go out, and just run in with night vision or whatever, and you know, like you can see how it's gonna go. I think the key to this ship is in its name, and that's runner. It's running. It's if you're caught, you're stuffed. And I think the large that vent gameplay is a large effort to stay out of jail. Unfortunately, I don't know. I'm not sold on it.
But
Maybe I will
like
be down the road.
I dislike all the components being on the same side as well. So it just really emphasizes the poorness of that engineering room. Yeah, you can access it from the vents, you can access it from the cargo bay, but the fact that your main entrance is from the cargo bay,
Now, Sears suggested they kind of get moved up to the turret area, but in that neck area, there's a lot of extra space. I think they could have put it in. Some of them could have gone in the neck behind the cockpit, or that foyer type of room that's in between the living area and the scanning room. I actually think they could have been spread out in the walls in there quite easily.
I think they could have even been spread out. Personally, I'd have liked to have seen them spread out within that
in the vents
system.
Yeah, that would have worked too.
Yeah,
that would have led to kind of infiltration gameplay. Like if someone can get on
So
your
you
ship
infiltrate,
and they
you don't just get into the one room to
Yep.
shot power. You got to get into that one and then work your way through to this location or that location.
at least it'll add to that what we now see as wasted space. It would have actually given it a bit more gameplay, reusability of the gameplay. Yeah.
And when you're an engineer, at the moment, I'm an engineer. Oh, the power plant's gone down. Oh, the shield's gone down. You're in the same room. If they were spread out over the ship, you'd have actually had to move to those locations. And then if there's a fire in the location, you've actually got more gameplay. So missed opportunity, I think, having all of your components in one area rather than spread throughout the...
And like the components being easily accessible, the servers are fairly accessible as well, because it's literally just you can don't even have to take the elevator. You can literally jump, grab the ledge, and you're in the server room. So again, if you
2 doors.
Yeah,
It's
2 doors.
Again,
It's
2
not very
doors.
many. Yeah.
That's
It
all
is very hard. I will say, defense-wise, it's very hard to get to the cockpit because it's like 4 doors to get to the cockpit. But I reckon a lot of people are going to leave the doors open just for ease of access. When they're using it.
Well, I've watched a stream and someone's going through, and as they were going through, they were actually opening all the other internal doors and leaving them open, just so they could run around the ship easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the 2-door access to the 2 most critical rooms in the ship as to what this ship does. A, the engineering room, and B, the data storage room for the data runner. And that's a big negative.
I'm going to go Paul under the bus because this is actually one that I put on there. But Paul, talk about the bottom turret and why it's so bad. I throw him under the bus because I put this on there. He probably doesn't even know what's wrong with it. But anyway, let's watch him struggle.
It's the same It's the same problem with the Carrack. The visibility sucks, and this is a problem with a lot of bottom turrets in Star Citizen, not just the Carrack and Star Runner. They just don't seem to realize that the bottom turret is the reason why, historically speaking, a bottom turret was very valuable in things like the V-17 or other planes that had those bottom turrets during warfare. Was because you couldn't see below you. And it was really difficult to kind of maneuver in a way that you could get targets that were coming up at you. And
bottom turrets gave you that ability.
And they give you that ability. But with Star Citizen, the problem is that your bottom turret is like this.
I call it like reality, I've called it a donut because it feels like you're in a donut and you can only shoot in this very restricted space.
But you can't do the hole.
No, it's literally
down, and that's exactly what the B-17 turrets did. If you look at them, they shoot straight down. Like they do this full. They have this full 180. I guess it's like 240, whatever. They can go everywhere in the half dome that they can see. They can shoot.
Yeah, and they could do that loop down, 90-degree down, 180 degrees to the sides and all around.
Yeah. But it just there's something I think to some certain degree, what they need is the standing turrets from the Corsair, but straight down. Where you're looking.
That's a really good idea.
And then you can move all the way around like this. You're
kind of like almost like a lay down turret where you kind of lay down and you are just directly your main, instead of looking forward in most turrets, your main axis is looking straight down. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, even like a hammerhead turret, but on the side, but again facing down. So
but facing down.
Yeah, like an actual ball turret instead of like a mount turret. It's a ball turret, so it can actually roll. I think the other option you had that you talked about, I'll let you talk about that because I think that's a good fix as well. The remote.
Yeah, they just need to make them remote. They already are off axis from where the turrets actually are in terms of whether we can climb in them. So just make them remote. I mean, it makes a little bit more sense, and then you can still get that through that much further arc. It works within. This is a high tech ship. Why wouldn't they have a remote turrets? You know, it's all about survivability with Crusaders. So
do you think that
you know,
scanner is going to be used as a defense mechanism to like try and find other ships and avoid them? Is that a part of the Star
yes.
Runner's arsenal?
Oh yes. That
I
scanner is
would assume
100% threat avoidance measurement. Because remember, it's designed as a blockade runner as well. So it's designed to be able to identify all the ships around it. But it's stealth. It doesn't have stealth. Or brute force. It just has speed. So
speed
having that information
and the ability to detect. Yeah.
Well, moving on to the good things now. So one of the good things to add into
Yes.
there is the maneuverability. So adding to what you boys just said, it is quite fast and very, very maneuverable.
Yeah.
I was on an SC Leaks stream when it first came out, and I jumped in with Higgles and a couple of random viewers on there, and we were in the ship, and we were just with the default guns, we were smashing ships. We're having cutlasses come up to us, and they were dead almost as soon as we spotted them. It was crazy. A coordinated team on this ship, even with just stock laid out, is fantastic. I was really surprised how it works, and in most ships you can't get both the bottom turret and the top to hit the target at the same time. But if you just have that nose just up a tad, and you can still shoot, by the way, as the pilot, all three people can hit the same target, and it's quite strong.
The downside, I did think of another negative. You really need to have multiple crew to get the most out of your guns.
Yeah, you've got to have at least three people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a downside. I think that's it's one of those situations where it's like, this is a multi-crew ship. I think that's actually a positive for it. It's like, this is a multi-crew ship.
Yeah,
it definitely has single player ability, but it is definitely a multi-crew ship.
It also kind of gives it a leg up above the Constellation way, because it's one less person that you need. You only need three. You know, like I think the main difference for me between this, without going, I don't want to go deeply into the Constellation, but for me, that fourth person is the pilot of the Merlin. So the Merlin comes with pros and cons as well, like having to wait for it to get back into dock and all that stuff. But if you don't have to ever deal with that, and you don't want to deal with that, this ship offers everything it does. So I kind of lean a bit more towards this, because I'm not the biggest fan of the Merlin. I like the gimmick of it, kind of docking, but I can live without it too. So, you know.
And having said the negative of this ship is that you need the full crew to get the most out of it. Yes, that is a negative, but the positive is it is a multiplayer ship, and you've got to look at it like that. So if you're thinking solo player, AI turrets, whatever, I think you're selling yourself short.
But it is doable though. We'll agree. I think we can all agree on that.
It is doable.
This is a soloable. It's a possibly soloable ship. Not that it's not best utilized. I'll agree with that. But it is soloable, and that's a plus. And I think it's more soloable than the Constellation, so to speak.
It gives. I was going to say it gives it a leg up on the Constellation, because the Constellation is very much not soloable. Yeah. Even though it's people try to treat it like that, which is a completely different thing. And that's another thing that a lot of people say, like, oh, this is a lot of people complaining about, like, oh, well, some ships are better than others. And I will say this, that's the advantage of the Star Runner, is that whether you agree or not, the Star Runner makes a lot of what the Constellation was supposed to do superfluous. And I think that's an advantage for the Star Runner, because
I think that the downside of it versus the Constellation is the pirate does have those 4 size 4s, whereas this, you've only, the pirate would only have 2 size 3s. That's a downside again.
But then the maneuverability means it can shoot more often. So I will take the maneuverability over more powerful guns, because I can hit the target more often. You see, so it's counted again, Algared. Like every time.
I'm not saying not. I'm just saying, there's the pros and cons for it. I still prefer this over a Constellation, just because it gives more value to a multi-crew. You can do it solo, but you get more out of your ship when you've got multi-crew.
So how do you two guys? I'll start with Paul. How do you feel about the first Crusader ship in game? Has this lived up to your expectations from Crusader? And do you think it's going to be a good thing moving forward, or are you a bit worried about? Because to me, it's dropped to almost a Drake level with the no pods. Like I'm like it's not as high as I thought it was going to be. Like
listen. You can shit on me and my Drake love for all you want, but I actually think it improves it. I would say it improves it because it drops it to a Drake level. It's essentially the way that the lore has always described it, and the way that they constantly discuss it is that it is simple but rugged. And the problem is that that's also how they describe Drake. So a lot of people are like, wait, so Crusaders Drake? And I'm like, yeah, but with more backups. And I think that's best the way of looking at it.
So I think it's a step above Drake. It's kind of like function over form. And one of the things that I when I first saw it, I didn't quite believe it, but like you can even see it in the picture here on the screen, the little dirt streaks on the textures and stuff. Like it's one step up from Drake. So there's not garbage bags on the walls and stuff, but it's got a used but very functional aesthetic. And I think that kind of comes through with what I said about the windows, because windows cost money because they're glass, so let's just have solid walls, you know. So Algared, your thoughts on Crusader as a manufacturer?
I really like it. I really like the look of this ship. I like the way they've got this as it's got the feel of the Millennium Falcon. It does the same things that the Millennium Falcon would do in terms of being fast, but also wanting to avoid contact with people, because he's and that idea kind of works in with the idea of smuggling. You know, that avoiding contact and getting through. But it's not a smuggler; it is a data runner, and you've got to look at that ship in that regard. But I really do like this ship. I like the maneuverability of it. I like the fact that it's multi-crew, and you do actually need crew to actually maximize it. I like the way the concept of the tunnels working, and the fact that everyone knows where they are, but it's got the ability to be a playable area. The downside is that I really hate where the components are, and I really wish the components were more spread around those tunnels. But I really do like the ship.
I will counter one thing. I will say this is that I still think that the Crusader Mercury Star Runner will be a good smuggling ship. But I think it'll be good smuggling ship because its maneuverability and its speed, which is deceptive for people. It's scanning suite, be able to see targets,
which enables you to detect anyone who's out there, and it's got
and then its tunnels actually do work for small value. It's just going to be a pain in the butt to try to move all of that contraband into those tunnels when you're traveling, and then have to move them all out because it's just a pain rather than having to just put them in the cargo bay. But you could also do that things like, for instance, put your contraband in the tunnels, carry a bunch of space potatoes as to a trade. So when you get stopped and scanned, you're just like, hey, I'm just a trader. And I've got some data running that I'm doing on the side, and they go, you might be able to like outwit some NPCs or outwit some players who may not know that you're carrying, blood diamonds in the in the tunnels area, because like it doesn't look like that. So it definitely has a viability as a smuggling ship. It's just not its primary purpose.
So I think, and those little with the running and stuff of this ship and the name of it, I think it really leads to what the ship is. It's running and it's hide and seeking, whether you're hiding from people as you're trying to get through space to get the cargo delivered, or they finally do catch you and you again hiding on the ship trying to not let them find the cargo. It's a lot of hiding and seeking and running, and it's like you're scared. You're permanently afraid when you're using the ship. Like that's kind of the concept.
And all those little areas in the little nooks that you've got, they're big enough for the little handheld box missions. So yes, you get your illegal box mission and drop it in your cargo bay, or you can put it in those little nooks and crannies.
One thing we haven't talked about is the cargo itself. It's got more cargo than the Constellation, and even if you don't want to smuggle and you don't want to do data running, I still think this treads fairly heavily on the Constellation in that regard. Now that it's even got more SCU is kind of crazy. It's a smaller package and carries more. That's kind of insane. It just puts more weight behind what we keep saying about the Constellation needing a rework. I'm just going to fire off a few other couple of things here because I want to wrap this up. But we've written down it's kind of like the Millennium Falcon. It's got great living space. I do think it's kind of weird with the two toilet situations facing each other, but I digress. The turret accessibility right in the middle of the ship, right next to each other, way better than the Constellation's weird tube thing and the flipping and all that jazz. The playable chess set Algared wrote down is pretty good as well. I think that will actually it's the first sign of something you can do while you're flying between worlds, so to speak. And it's got this little mysterious field with all these little hidden access areas and stuff like that. And, you know, secret doors and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people talk about how, once everyone knows they're there, but there are little things like where you pick up the chess piece and you put it on the coaster, it changes. What if there were 10 different versions of that and you pick the one that you want?
Yep.
And what I mean
You
by
pick
that,
the chess piece you want to use.
no, well, you could make it that, or it could be, what if it's a light switch that you turn off and on 3 times? What if it's if you pull out a book from this particular place? So 10 completely different things. And yeah, everyone won't know what they are, but if you're sitting there very quickly trying to get into a room and you don't know what it is, as the person that is the smuggler checker, that's going to stall you while he can get away and move into another room with a crate.
Well,
So
even if it's just change the chess piece, you know, it's not for queen,
that
it's
works.
for king.
That works. Yeah,
you know,
that works
you've
as
got,
well.
What, 16, so now 24
32
pieces or so
or
that you
24,
can,
yeah, something like that.
that it could be.
Yeah.
Actually 18 pieces because the pawns are all the
Yeah.
same. So 18 options just on the chess set if you can change the piece that actually triggers it.
So that's just another idea. Let us know your thoughts below. Are you happy with how the Star Runner turned out? I know there's some really big issues that the community's been worried about here. If you want to talk about that, that's cool. Talk about it, but just do it concisely, because to me, some of the things have been blown out. Like, I'm not too worried about the life pods. I think it kind of it's the first time we've seen a Crusader ship, so now we kind of know where Crusader sits in the spectrum. So some people probably thought Crusader was right up the top, but now we've kind of learned. And I'm talking about quality. I'm not shitting on Drake. I'm just saying it's lower down the totem pole in quality standards, and health and safety and all that jazz. But it's definitely above Drake.
These guys may have escape pods on other of their ships.
There you go.
It doesn't
That is
necessarily
true.
say that this is Crusader. We never put life pods in because it's space, you know, a money saving feature. It's just this ship.
Algared, I'm trying to wrap up and you're hijacking, going back into things. Stop it now. I'm cutting you off. Right, yeah, so I'm wrapping this up. Yeah, let us go in the comments below, please, your thoughts. Obviously, Algared's very passionate, as we all are. I'm just joking with him. Yeah, so let's know your thoughts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you like this type of content, subscribe. If you want to go further on Patreon, that's good. Again, this week, because we're doing the IEA sale, if you're looking for help from Algared or Paul or myself, hit us up on Discord, or there are plenty of people that have joined the Discord in the Fix My Fleet channel that'll give you a hand. He's been Algared. He's been Paul. He looks very tired. I'm very tired. It's now 5 a.m. I'm going to bed. Thank you very much.
I'm going to work.
Catch you in the next one.
And we're out of here. Take care. God bless.
See you in the black.